services that we will need, right? For example, I want my agent to have an allowance. Like, you solve problems for me, here's like $100 in order to solve problems for me.
Hey, this is Todd from One Shot API, the creators of One Shot Pay. You can now connect One Shot Pay to any agentic environment that can connect to an MCP server in order to give your agents an allowance from your balance in your One Shot Pay account. And I'm going to show you how to do that in this video. Let's start by logging in at oneshotpay.com and claim a username if you haven't done that already, and sign in with the passkey. And if you don't have a balance yet in your One Shot Pay account, you can onboard for 0 fees by clicking the deposit button and going through the on-ramp flow with Coinbase. If you already have a balance, it's really easy to connect your balance to an agent by coming over here to your profile button and click Agent Accounts. And here's where we're going to set up an agent allowance. And then we're going to connect it to either Replit or Cursor. We have deep links for those. Or if you're using something else, you can just simply copy the MCP server link right here. But let's create an agent allowance. We're going to give it a name. Next, we're going to set how much money the agent can spend maximum per day. Now that we've set how much it can spend per day, we're going to set how much it can spend in its lifetime of this allowance. We can also set a minimum balance for our account. So we can say, do not let my One Shot Pay balance drop below this amount. So for this example, I'm going to set $10. And then lastly, we can limit how much the agent can spend per tool call. And I'm going to say that it's going to be $1. And then I'm going to hit create. And under the hood, this is using MetaMask delegations framework in order to do all of this budgeting and allowance in a fully non-custodial fashion. And what you're going to see is that I don't have to put a private key into a local configuration file on whatever my agent it is that I'm using, whether it's a remote agent or whether it's an agent that I'm running on my laptop. All I'm going to do is connect the One Shot Pay MCP server to it, and it'll be able to request budget on demand from this allowance and spend it on x402 resources as needed. So let's go ahead and connect it to Replit, and I'm going to click the Add to Replit button and hit Test and Save, and then Authorize Server. And I have 2 budgets configured. I'm going to connect it to the Replit agent budget that I just configured on the video and hit Allow. And if I scroll down, you can see the One Shot Pay MCP server is connected, and we can now use it to request x402 gated resources. So let's go ahead and do that next in the second part of this tutorial. Okay, so I've started a new app building session in Replit, and I've been playing around with it a little bit, but we're going to use this session to call a remote x402 resource and pay for it with One Shot Pay. And I just want to remind you, we didn't have to install any local private key into the coding agent and then dump USDC into it and then hope it doesn't spend it all in one place. All we did was connect an MCP server to our One Shot Pay account, and the underlying MetaMask delegations will enforce that the agent doesn't spend its money faster than you want it to, and it still remains fully non-custodial, even though we haven't generated a private key and injected it into the coding agent. So to keep it simple, what I've done is I've set up an N8N workflow with the One Shot API x402 gateway. This is just going to mock up a dummy x402 resource, and I'm asking for payment in USDC on the base network, and I'm setting the calls to 1 cent per call. And our URL is this. So I'm going to take this URL, and I've already published this workflow, so it's available on the public internet. I'm going to come back into my coding agent, and I'm going to say call this x402 URL and pay with One Shot Pay. Okay, and after it thought a little bit, it said that the call was successful and it paid for the endpoint, and it even gave us back the transaction hash, which is what is returned by this endpoint. And if I click on the executions here, we can see there is that call that I just made from the Replit instance. And if I come over to One Shot Pay and look at its recent activity, this is one of the really nice things about using it as an agent wallet, is that your transactions that your agent makes on your behalf will show up in your activity feed, and it will tell you why the agent decided to call and pay for that resource. So if I click on this one and it says payment to, that is the URL that I provided to the agent to call, coming from my Replit agent, and the justification is x402 payment to webhook endpoint. So I explicitly told it, hey, you need to call this endpoint. If it had figured out a reason to call a tool on its own, it would provide a different justification. But as far as agents go on the market, this is pretty much the only one where I can non-custodially give an agent a allowance in USDC and cryptographically enforce not only an overall budget, but a rate of spend, and then also having a nice user interface that I can access from either my desktop or my mobile and see why did my agent decide to spend this money on the tool call that it chose to call. So I hope you thought this was interesting. We're really excited about this new form of non-custodial agent allowances. We're going to be doing a lot of stuff with it in the future, so watch out for more videos coming from us soon.